David was in the land of the Philistines for 16 months. During that time he kept fairly much under the radar. When Achish, king of the Philistines, asked him what he was doing from day to day, he gave a vague kind of a reply, much like a Christian living in the world would do, who doesn't want to say too much about their faith. However, David was slowly being drawn into the world of the Philistines. And we're going to read about this from 1 Samuel chapter 29 and verses 3 to 5. Then said the princes of the Philistines, "What do these Hebrews here?" And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, "Is not this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been with me these days," or these years? And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him. And the princes of the Philistines said unto him, "Make this fellow return, and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master? Should it not be with the heads of these men? Is not this David, of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands, and David his 10,000s? It was a dark period of David's life. In his sorties against the surrounding enemies of Israel, we read that David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, chapter 27, verse 11. He didn't want Achish to find out that he was split in his loyalties, half in and half out. He kept up a pretense. During this period of his life, there's no mention of the Lord's name by David. The man who inquired of the Lord had become cold in heart, his ear deaf to the voice of his Lord. That's the effect of compromise on the heart of every believer. It was the effect that the world had on Peter when he stood and warmed himself at the world's fire. What was the result? 3 times he denied the Lord. It came to the point that David had to make a choice. As the Philistines gathered to battle with Israel, Achish said to David, "Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go with me to the battle, thou and thy men," verse 1 of chapter 28. It seems incredible to us, but David and his men passed on in the rearward with Achish, verse 2 of this chapter. Perhaps that rearward position indicated a lack of enthusiasm, but was it possible that the champion of Israel was going to fight with his fellow countrymen, whom David himself had called the armies of the living God in chapter 17, verse 36? What a warning this is to us all of the dangers of worldliness. It was James who wrote, "Friendship of the world is the enemy of God," James chapter 4, verse 4. It still is. What might David have done had it not been for the suspicions of the Philistine princes? They could see the inconsistency. They could see that David should not be among them. "Make this fellow return and let him not go down with us to the battle," we read in verse 4. That's what they said. Why should we want the world when the world clearly does not want us? It was the Apostle Paul who highlighted this inconsistency in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. "Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness?" How important it is that we stand with Christ and not against him, to stand with the rejected Christ and not with those who reject him. To quote again from 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 17, how important to come out from among them and to be separate, saith the Lord. May the Lord give us help to stand for him and not to be with those who are against him.